Hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me. Who am I? I am Karen Tim. I also go by at Neurodiversity in Principle. My pronouns are she, her, and they. I use identity first language as a member of the autistic community. I'm an educator with 25 plus years of experience. 15 of those years have been as a school administrator. I'm also a global advocate and founder of the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators, which is a global network. And I'm chair of the Intersectional Infinity Summit, which just concluded on April 2nd. It was a week-long event, and the resources are out there recorded and amazing for you to check out. And most importantly, I am mom to an incredible human. I am going to go quickly because I'm watching time, and I've recorded this more than once already because I got lots to say. How do I describe autism? So, autism to me is a neurological difference. It's not a disorder or a deficit. That's why we say we're different, not less. And an autistic neurology is just one of those natural variations amongst humans. Things like skin color, height, body type, gender identity, those are all aspects of diversity. Neurodiversity includes a variety of neurologies and their natural variations in our species. Like snowflakes, fingerprints, and moments in time, every autistic person, just like every human being, is unique. Don't believe the stereotypes. Autistics are everywhere. We're in all professions, all cultures, all gender identities, all faiths, and all ages. And finally, I don't say that I have autism. I am autistic. That's what I meant by identity first language. That's because every aspect of my experience on Earth comes through an autistic neurology. You can see on the picture here, it's my favorite graphic. The one on the far right shows you if my brain is an autistic brain, like that is me. Right? Everything is coming through my autistic brain, every aspect of my experience. So when somebody says my autism doesn't define me, I want you to think about the fact that if you were to take away my autistic neurology, I would not actually be me. While we're all unique, some things that we do often share are the following: spiky skill sets. So this could be strengths and needs, which can vary from time to time. It can include like a really amazing strengths, but also varying support needs. And that doesn't mean low or a high functioning. Even some of the most highly intelligent and capable autistics can have periods of high support needs. And this is often because living in a world that is not built for us is beyond exhausting. We frequently have complex sensory profiles. It can be really hard for non-autistics to understand, but two examples that you might be familiar with are like sound sensitivity and light sensitivity. They're common, but there are many, many more, and these can change from time to time. We often also register more information, and the impact tends to be stronger and less predictable. And that's something from Nick Walker, an advocate and author. We're also seers of patterns. Many of us can spot complex patterns very easily. Monotropic, we can often become real experts in specific areas if we're given the opportunity to pursue our interests, because that is a really strong motivator for us. And the term specializations is what I like to use, as opposed to some of the old-fashioned deficit-based language. People might have said before obsessions. They're not obsessions. This is where talents come from, right? Being autistic is also a lifelong neurodifference. Like all humans, we develop and change over time, but we will always be autistic, and that's not a bad thing. It's really important to note that while autism is often still seen as a deficit, the social model of disability suggests that many aspects of being autistic are actually disabling, not because of our neurology, but because autistics are a minority population in a global population. And so that majority doesn't really understand the minority. And there's a very long and complicated history related to why autism is seen this way, but stigma, misunderstanding, assumptions, prejudice, these all play a really big part. I told you I was going to cover a lot. My autistic brain determines how I receive information, process information, interact with my environment and other people, my sensory reception, both hypo and hyper sensitivities, my interpretation of my own existence, the way I communicate, the way I experience emotion, joy, pain, internal and external sensations, and yes, empathy. We are not a list of symptoms in an outdated diagnostic manual. And then finally, a widely misunderstood aspect of autistics is how we communicate. Many autistics are non-speakers or communicate more comfortably in writing. I'm actually a situationally mute. So even though I'm talking a lot right now, there are circumstances in which I do not feel comfortable or get the words out the way that I need to in order for people to understand me the way that my brain is wanting me to be understood. And that can make things very challenging. So, it's really important for the general population to learn to understand that, right? Um, so, sorry. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so it's frequently wrong when people are assuming things about us, right? Most non or partial speakers do not have an intellectual disability. There's a great film called Listen, but there's also a documentary that was created last year called This Is Not About Me, if you want to learn more about non-speakers. Fantastic resources there. So, how can we leverage community building and connections to support the actually autistic community and our families? No one understands autistics the way autistics do. So, families who work together as co learners with the autistic community have access to a global community of autistics who can provide authentic insights into their children or to other family members. By listening to our stories, hearing our perspective, listening to how we communicate and experience the world, anyone who's seeking to be an ally can learn from us, about us, and then make decisions with us that align with our needs and our neurologies. The global effort needs to really shift towards acceptance and understanding autistic ways of being. By doing this, we can focus on making our society more inclusive of all neurologies and accessible for all communication styles. Only when we work together as co learners will we be able to shift things like the school system, the medical system, and society towards human rights based neuro-affirmative practices. And another piece to this is we have to know our partners. Autistic led organizations and specialists all around the world, they are the partnerships we need to seek out as we're on this learning journey together. Know that many non autistic led organizations who say they're advocating for us, they don't even have autistic board members. And that is really problematic because there should be nothing about us without us. So, what do I know now that I wish I had known earlier? And would this knowledge have changed things for me? I do wish I had known that I was autistic sooner. I could have made more of a difference for more people sooner, especially as an educator. I always knew our systems were broken and they weren't meeting the needs of autistic students, but I didn't fully understand why I knew this. There was something intuitive about it. And so when I was diagnosed and learning about my own autistic neurology from autistic researchers, advocates, and educators, that has helped me to trust my instincts as an autistic human who could see what was happening and understood and saw patterns maybe that other people didn't see and experienced things differently and was witness to many things in education. That has allowed me to start advocating more for change that's based on honoring autistic identity. Our schools don't know how to do this yet, and that's because this is why those who are seeking to be allies have to help us do more. We have to work together in order to change the world. I wish that I had been given an opportunity to be taught by autistics how to support autistics in the schools because we haven't been. There's unique autistic ways of being that are mostly misunderstood because a lot of what we learn about autistics is coming to us from non-autistics historically. So there's been a lot of time wasted thinking about cures and treatments and fixing and removing autistic traits. I didn't know that the history of autism was so troubling. I didn't know that a lot of the things that were happening to autistics were actually traumatizing them. We have to listen to autistics and autistic educators Those unique insights are going to transform our practice and really change lives and save lives. I wish I had known that things like consequence and reward based systems are really damaging for autistics. Like most educators, I was taught that these systems were the best practice. And I was actually a really big advocate for behaviorism. I believed in it, I had learned it, I thought it was great, and it worked. The thing is, it doesn't actually work for any long impact, and it actually does more harm than good. That's what the statistics are showing. So things like ABA and PBS are really troubling because these therapies are based on making an autistic act like, communicate like, or interact like a non-autistic person. That's just causing trauma and contributing to our masking our identities, making us think that that's the best way to live, and it's a trauma response. So this has all kinds of horrible consequences, and that contributes to things like a shorter life expectancy, challenges in society like employment and housing, mental health issues, high rates of abuse, and much higher suicide rates. It's very scary. This is why there is also a global movement against these conversion-based therapies. Through a lens of empowerment and thinking about my experiences with transitions in the education system to date, what message do I want to share with you? Our students who are autistic need to know that they are not broken neurotypicals. We have to provide access to alternative and augmentative communication because that's a human right. And it's actually protected under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We need to stop trying to force autistics to use mouth speak, and instead we should be offering alternative forms of communication to all students so they can decide what works best for them. We should be listening to non-speakers, and there's so many resources out there. Behaviorist strategies like ABA, the old and the new. Some people think it's this new version. Well, they're all versions that are based on making an autistic appear to look and seem like they're non-autistic. And that's actually against our human rights. These strategies are in our schools, in our teacher education programs, and they're actually still in legislation that's not caught up with current research. They don't align with protections that Canada has agreed to. Stimming needs to be normalized. We have to be able to stim freely. Let's throw away things like quiet hands and quiet feet. These are natural autistic ways of being when we're moving our hands or our bodies in free ways to express autistic joy or as stressors, right? To relieve stress. So that needs to be part of our ability to experience the world and communicate. And learning to understand those is what's key. Leveraging autistic expertise and broad lived experiences, of course, is essential, and that's going to help with all of these. So you need to know, and here's a trigger warning, that the true history of autism is actually very controversial. I'm not going to get into the details because that's a whole other workshop, but there's been a lot of discrimination over the years, and it's not just history. These things continue to this day. There is a billion-dollar industry that depends on convincing society that autistics need fixing. It's not regulated. It's not evidence-based. It's actually based on the same principles of gay conversion therapy and dog training. There are other ways than ABA. We do not grow out of autism. So learn with us how we can grow into our autistic neurologies and identities. Connect with autistic adults and join our community. Instead of trying to fix us, accept our differences and question your own biases and help question other people's biases. Help us, right? And advocate for your child or for other autistics by working with us, fight with us in ways that respect our right to communicate and exist and be educated without seeking to change us. We want to learn to embrace our own autistic identities, and that needs to start from when we're very young. Learn from advocates. When you listen and learn from autistics, that is the real answer. Learn with us, learn from us. There should be nothing about us without us. To find out more about the Neurodivergent Infinity Network of Educators or to access the many resources we created during the Intersectional Infinity Summit with people from around the world, autistics telling their stories, sharing their perspectives, check out our website. You can also check out our YouTube channel where the feed is there. There's a QR code. Follow us on Twitter. There's the 2 links there for you, and reach out by DM or by accessing the Google form on our website. And Just an FYI, June 18th is Autistic Pride Day, so I hope you will join us in celebrating Autistic Pride. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to connecting again soon.